Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you some tips and tricks about how to create different lettering styles. So if you follow my Instagram or if you know me, then you know that I like to combine a lot of different styles into one lettering piece. So like faux calligraphy, block letters, 3D letters, but even within that there's you can do a lot of things to make the letters different. So there's not like a right way or an easy way to do it. A lot of it's just trial and error and seeing what you like. So I've been doing this for years and I know specific styles that I personally like, so I use them over and over again. But there are some little tips and little tricks that you can do to just change up the look of a letter just by changing up something small. So let's take the letter A. And we're gonna focus on monoline for now, but we'll do block letters and stuff later. But for now, this is your traditional letter A with your crossbar in the middle. But if you just change the location of your crossbar, it will start changing up the look of your letters. So at the very bottom or at the very top, or even in some cases you can leave out the crossbar and you can tell it's an A. So just by doing this, you have 4 different lettering styles. Next, you can make it curvy, and this will also change it up. And again, even within this, you can do different areas for your crossbar. You can do one side curvy, one side straight. And then your crossbar you can connect to the bottom corner. And what else? You can add in a little flourish if you want. And do the same thing, but make it a little bit more curvy. And just like that, you have 8 different lettering styles. So now let's talk about block letters. Even within block letters, you can use the same principle. So let's do the letter C. So here's your normal block letter C. And if you want some tips on how to do a good block letter, you just draw your regular monoline C and then follow the inside and then just close out the outside. And now you have a letter C. Alright, so for C you can do it like this curvy way, or if you want to make it more bubbly, you can just do, instead of a straight edge, do rounded corners, and then you can add a little exclamation point to make it look even more bubbly. You can also make it like just completely angular like that. Or you can just do like a triangle. And then you have another letter C. You can also make it into 3D. So for example, just do 45-degree lines and then connect them. And there you have your letter C in a 3D. So these are just little things that you can add to each letter to make it a little bit different. And there's no right way or wrong way, you just have to keep playing with it and seeing what's out there. And you can get inspirations. Also serif, adding serif little feet to your letters will also help. And even with B, for example, you can make the top smaller and the bottom bigger, or you can make the top bigger and your bottom smaller, or you can just do even. But don't touch this corner to the stem. Otherwise your regular B would just look like this. But just like that, you have 4 different ways of doing the letter B. So when we're talking about serif, you just bring these edges out, make your downstrokes thicker, and then just connect it with the little curvy lines, and there you have your serif B. And even within serifs, you can do a lot of different types of serifs. I don't really know their proper names, but they are fun to come up with. So for example, you can just do an angular one. And there you have a serif B without the thick downstroke, thin upstroke type thing, but it's still a serif. You're still adding little feet to it. If you were just doing monoline, curve it a little bit. And there you have the serif bubbly B. And then go back in and erase the little pencil marks so you don't accidentally line it later. These are just some ideas. So if you do like I said, you can change the location of your crossbars. You can do it with E as well. E is always a fun thing to play with your crossbars. So for example, do it very bottom, you can do it at the very top, or you can do it in the middle. And you can also change the width of your letter. So for example, if you make the letter E very narrow, or you can make it very wide, and that'll also change. So it really depends on the word that you're doing. I base my styles on trying to fill in a space. So for example, I'll do a big word later, but right now let's say I want to fill in this rectangle with the word hello. So then I use the rectangle as my guideline. And I also keep in mind that I don't have to make everything the same size. So there we have hello. It's mostly all the same block letter style, but for example, I can make this a little bit more curvy and less angular. And because, when you do an L, you always have this like large space in here. So sometimes I'll just put the letter in that empty space to fill it up. So yeah, that's a really quick hello. All right, so now I'm going to show you different lettering styles within one word. So I'm going to use the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious because it's a super long word. And I'm going to try to use different styles for each letter. And you can see that you don't have to use the same style within a word. You can play around with the styles, and it's a great way to practice to come up with different lettering styles to fit into different spaces. So let's get started. First, I'm going to write it out because otherwise I'm sure I'm going to forget how to spell it. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I think that's how you spell it. I'm going to break it up by syllables. So supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And we'll probably edit as we go along. But again, I'm going to try to do it within a rectangular space. I'm going to draw my rectangle. Okay, so I drew out my guidelines off camera so you didn't have to watch me erase and redo over and over again. All right, so we're going to start with super. With S, you can do a lot with S. S is actually a really fun letter to letter as long as you can get down the basics of lettering S. So for example, you can just make it like big on the top, small on the bottom. You can also make it curvy like that if you want. There's more S's, so we'll do a different style next. And then with U, just do, since this word is actually not that long, remember to leave space in between your letters. So with the P, I'll just do a big fat P. E, let's do it fat and bottom. And then R. R's are fun because you can play with your little tails, whatever you call them. All right, so I'm going to make it into block letters. This one I'll make 3D. So let's do it a little shorter. And then add in my 3D. And play around with it. It doesn't have to be right in your first go. I have an eraser that I use a lot, and I go through erasers really quickly because I tend to erase and try over and over again. And that's why we start with a pencil. A simple P. I might make downstroke thicker just to fill up that extra gap that I have between the U. Let me make this. Right, E. I'm going to make it into a serif. Shorten the middle. So then now you have space. Bring this out. And then R, I'm just going to make it a little bit more rounded so it looks like it's a bubble. Do the C. I'm actually going to do it at an angle because Cali is actually a really easy way to make shorter. It's a really short section of the word. So in order to fill up the space, I'm going to do it at an angle. And so there's Cali. I'm going to make the C a little bubbly, but instead of doing the thick downstrokes, I'm going to go opposite and do thin downstroke and thicker upstroke. like so. And then for the A, we'll just do a curve like with the R. And then crossbar, I'll do a slant. And then for the L, because there's so much, so when there's a lot of space, empty space for your L, I kind of like to do the calligraphy type L, where you have a little swoosh in the front. And then it fills up that extra space. And then I'm just going to do a regular old I. Hopefully you guys are getting an idea of how you can come up with different lettering styles just by using the space that is allocated for each word. So having constraints, I think, is a great thing for me to challenge my creativity, because I got to fit something in that space. So I'm going to try to think of different ways to make it work. And it's okay to not get it right on the first try. Just keep going. Erase, start over, erase, start over. I've done this like 10,000 times. So next one is fragile, which is a little bit of a longer word. So we're going to have to watch our spacing. We'll do a curvy. And then the G. With the G, you can also change the placement of your, I guess it's not really a crossbar, but that little area. And it will change the way it looks. So let's see what happens if we do it lower. All right, so it's a little bit different. And then I'm just gonna do, you can also consider switching up your lowercase and uppercases. I know some people like to stick to one or the other, but I actually like to play with both. And I really like to use the lowercase I because it's straight, and also you have that little dot on top, so it's not so boring, it's just a straight line. All right, and then L, I'm just gonna do a good old fashioned L, even though there is that space, but oh well. All right, F, since I'm doing it lower here, I'm gonna make my crossbar on my F also a little bit lower so it looks somewhat even, but you don't have to. R, since I did a curvy R on top, I'm gonna make it a little bit more angular, like so. And then just curve that. Sometimes if I feel like it's a little bit too boring, I'll extend this out. And it changes it a little bit. All right, A, I'm gonna make it a really low bar. That's actually my favorite way to do A's, which is very different from this A. All right, so with G's and S and C's, you can either bring this part down and do it like that, like I did with the C, or you can just let it end at the top like that, so you don't bring that little part down. Again, it just changes the way it looks. All right, and then my I. I think I'm gonna make my G a little bit wider to fill in that gap. And there we have fragile. All right, next is istic. Probably a bubble I for the first one, but I'm gonna make it fatter. And then for the S, I'm going to make it a little bit more of a traditional S. Okay, and then with T, the crossbar sometimes makes it really difficult because when you do a T, you have this extra space in between, or on either side of the stem, which is kind of annoying. So sometimes I'll just do it like, make the top bar really curved, and then you can shorten it. Now, that looks weird, but it's fine. I'm going to curve it instead so it looks more like a calligraphy type T. And now there's this extra space here, so I'm actually going to take my S and make it a little bit longer. And so instead of making it curvy, I'm just going to make it a little bit more angular so I can fit in that space. So like I said, it's like an iterative process. Once you start going, it might not be as you expected. So for example, I'm about to finish this word and it's not even filling up all the space of this line, so I might combine it with XB if I can fit it. Probably not though. Let's see what happens. So everything is really angular right now. I might just keep with that mood and make my C like a little rectangle C. Make it thinner. All right, it's not gonna fit, but whatever. E, you can also do this kind of E, like curve it. Like, I'll make it symmetrical with the eye. So I'll just make it a little bit curvy and fat and bubbly. All right, so my top P was a big P, so I'm gonna do a little P now. I mean like a little, yeah, I should probably figure out the terms for these letters, but instead I'm just gonna describe it to you. I made this part narrower than say the P for super. This was thick. So I'm gonna make this P a little bit thinner. And then I am going to actually just fit it under this little curvy part. So because this is like straight, I'm just gonna do it this way. And then for the L, I'm gonna do a cursive L. And then again, another I up here. So let's do faux calligraphy for the L. D. And then O. Sometimes, you know, you don't have to do the whole length of it. And then you can just add a little line on the bottom to make up that space, just to add a little visual interest. So I feel like there's a little gap here. So instead, I'm going to bring this out and then bring this out a little bit. So a little bit of a serif. All right, and then C. And then you can always consider making your bars kind of like swishes. I-O. So O is kind of like the hardest one to make interesting because it's just an O, but you can also make it take like some inspiration from calligraphy. Since we're doing let's make it a little bit angular. So there's actually a lot of space left. So instead we can do it like this to fill up the space, and then at the very end, you know, do some exclamation points. Okay. So we're gonna do it this way. Something like that, and then when we ink it, I'll make it cleaner. So there, we have our supercalifragilisticexpialidocious in many different forms. So let me ink it, or I could just leave it like this. But I do like to ink it so I can clean it up. And also, you can always add details afterwards to differentiate it from the other lettering styles. So instead of just coloring it all in black or leaving it blank, you can add little like dots or lines, inlines, and they can all contribute to a different kind of style. But really, you're just changing little things here and there. Oh, that was terrible. So I draw at an angle. I don't know about you guys, but I can't draw when my book is straight or my paper, even, or write. When I write, I always write at an angle. So again, when you're inking, it's okay if you make a mistake. You can always just go back and color it in black or whatever color you're using. and then you don't have to worry about your mistakes showing up. So I know some people take like a long time to ink, but I kind of just like to do it really fast and then deal with the mistakes later. Which is maybe not the best way to go about it, but whatever works, right? So like now I just noticed that there's this space right here. So, you know, if you want to fill it in, just draw a little circle. You can do a little star, which I might do right here because there's another gap. Now just do another circle. So yeah, you can fill in space by doing little doodles, little dots. Dots are also my favorite. Do one more here. Might as well keep it even. All right. I guess my one word of advice is to not take things too seriously. Like, don't think that it has to be perfect on the first try. That's why we start with pencil. So yeah, it's okay if you don't know exactly what you're doing. Sometimes the inspiration comes while you're lettering. Like, you know, for example, with this ST, I wasn't planning on doing that, but it happened because there was that space and there was that gap, so I could use it. Also, a tip, if you're like me, working off of a journal or notebook that has a big gap to the bottom of it or to the edge of your paper, just put something here so that you have easy, it's like similar height as your book. That way you're not trying to like keep your hand above and shaking. I've done that many times. Hopefully that makes sense. I can't word very well today. So yeah, like I consider this kind of like when I'm doing composition, it's kind of like playing Tetris. You're trying to fit all your letters into a specific shape, and that will inspire you in what kind of style to use. And it doesn't have to be like exactly the same for every single letter in a word. And that's why I'm not very good at coming up with alphabets with all the same style, because a lot of my style is based on the word or the space I'm given, etc., etc. So if you ever ask me for an alphabet of one of my styles, I probably can't do it without a lot of thought. Well, this one I am probably going to color in. If you didn't want to do exclamation points, you can do like stars or something just to fill in that gap, or a little heart. Hearts are my frequently go-to doodle as well. All right, so there we have it inked. I'm going to erase it and hope that it's not gonna smudge. Okay, so now we can fill in the letters with, you can either color it in, you can leave it blank, or you can fill it in with details. So for example, with S, I'm just gonna color it in. Grab your thick marker or whatever you use and color it in. I probably won't color in a lot of them, although I generally do color in most of my letters, just because it takes a lot of time. I don't think I have that much time right now. For the U, I'm going to just draw some diagonal lines on the 3D with my thin pen. Same here, and I'm just going to actually clean up my lines a little bit because I made some little mistakes. All right, and then I'm going to just draw, I guess, some highlights. And there you have it. For P, what can we do? We can just draw like a little rectangle on the thick area, and the little curve here. And then I'm gonna, instead of coloring it in, I'm just going to diagonal line it as well. And if you find that it's a little bit messy, you can just go back over it with your pen and clean up your lines a little bit. And there we go. E, I think I'll just leave as is, but I'm going to draw like little highlights. When in doubt, highlights are like the easiest way to add a little bit something without taking too much time or effort. And there we go. For R, let's do some end lines. And then for C, I'm going to, again, do some highlights. But this time I'm going to make it a little bit more bubbly. So there's C. And then for A, I'm probably just going to color it in. You can also just use different colors for all your letters, and that'll also look different. I'm more of a black and white kind of person. And then for these black ones, you don't have to just leave it completely black. You can also add in some highlights with your white pen if they work. Wait till your ink dries, actually. Probably what I should have done. Alright, so there's some highlights there. For L, we can just do another end line. There's like no right way or wrong way to do this. It's just up to you, up to your mood. For I, I'm colored in. When I don't know what to do, I color it in. Also because I kind of screwed up this eye. I'm just gonna make the top a little bit longer to match my bottom. Okay, and then fragile, I'm actually going to make it 3D all across. So again, if 3D eludes you, just think of where your light source is. So for me, it's the upper right-hand corner, which means the shadow is going to fall on the bottom left, and then go with that. All right, and then I'm just going to color it in. So you don't have to, but I like to do all the lines first so I don't mess up when I go to color it in. But you can just immediately color it in if you feel more comfortable with that. Actually, I'm going to change it up for R. I'm going to just do more diagonals. Go over the black lines again, just to clean it a little bit. All right, and then A, instead of doing diagonals, I'm going to do a straight line down like that. I'm going to follow the letter, actually. Oops. Okay, A, G, instead of, I'm going to do horizontal lines. And then curve it for the bottom. Like so. So just like doing these little changes in your line directions, and change up your 3D letters as well. And if you want, you can emphasize where the corners are. You can also do dots, but those take forever. So I'm just going to, again, do diagonals because it's actually my favorite. But for example, if you wanted to contrast the bottom from your sides, then you can just do crisscross on the bottom, and it makes it look darker than your sides. All right, and then L, might as well make it symmetrical and color it in, like I did with F. Sometimes my pens are too thick. Let me just clean up this mess right here. Okay, so then that line's done. Just going to make it bubbly like a C. And then S, I'll just draw a line down this area. Yeah, and that's good. And then with T, I like to do this because it actually brings that letter to you. Otherwise, it kind of looks like a blob. So now it looks more like a T. So I'm going to add little dots and then finish it off like that. And then with an I, I'm just going to do diagonal lines. And if you're tired of diagonal lines, just do some crisscross. Yep. And then for C, I'm going to do kind of embossing, I guess. These kinds are a lot easier to do when you have angular letters than when you have rounded letters. Rounded letters are a little bit harder to wrap your head around. So with this E, I'm actually going to color it in because I kind of messed it up a little bit. So I can fix it if I color it in. Kind of. And I'll come back afterwards with a white pen and add some details into the black so it's not so black. And with X, I'm definitely going to make it into bubbly type because it's so bubbly. So maybe I'll just make it a little bit more pointed at the corners. And then do some exclamation points. Like so. All right, we're nearing the end. P. Okay, I'm just going to leave as is, and then just do some like horizontal lines up the stem. I just draw another rectangle inside, and then make it like 3D-ish, like so. So it looks like it's 3D on the other side, going in instead of popping out. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. A, you know what? For A, I'm actually going to make it into a serif, even though my lines are not the straightest right now. There we go. Maybe I'll do like a little highlight here, line there. And then for L, probably just gonna leave it as is. Do some lines for highlights. All right, and then I, this time I'm gonna do vertical lines instead of slanted. Okay, and then D, probably do the same thing as I did with P up there. And just draw a rectangle in the thick section. All right, with O, I'm just going to draw an end line. Color it in, because I haven't colored in a letter yet in this line. Okay, definitely going to color in the U because I messed up there. So let me do that first. And for this eye, I'm just going to do end lines to make it easy to read. And then since this O is kind of bubbly, just do some highlights. Okay, and then the S, let's just do some dots for the end line. And then color it in. All right, and then just to fill in the edges. And then finally with the exclamation points, which I'm just going to do this little inline exclamation point. You don't have to color it all in. Sometimes texture makes your letters even more interesting. I will fix this though. You can also go back in, like I said, with a white pen and add a little bit more details on these black ones so that they're not too boring, I guess. This one, I'll just do an end line. So it's just the same idea with a black pen, but instead you're using a white pen. And then this one, I'll just probably do this. C, I'll make highlights. And then U, just do 2 vertical lines. That's done. So there you have it. You can also go back in with a gray pen and make shadows if you want. I'm not going to do it here just because I think we're running out of time. But yeah, just remember that changing up a little bit of something in a letter will change the look of it. So for example, the crossbars in A making it angular or making it rounded, that also changes it up drastically. Like you can tell with the C, bubbly C, and then this just making it more angular is very different. And then once you go in, if you do all block letters, but you want to make it a little bit more fun, then just add in little details that are different. Do 3D letters, where you can just do different kinds of lines, and that'll change it up as well. All right. So thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I hope you found this interesting and useful. You can find me over on NOLA Lettering on Instagram and Facebook, and hopefully I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel soon, but we'll see about that. But thank you again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week.